on lockdown, but not locked up. Hello, somebody. So good to be here and to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is human resources and careers and leadership and all of those good things. And so, just to give you a little backdrop on myself, I really didn't intend to be in human resources. And in fact, when I graduated high school, I didn't know what I wanted to be. And perhaps this is a part of the reason why I'm really passionate about understanding careers and um, how to make those choices. Because at 15, I'm graduating high school and not having a clue of what I want to do or who I want to be, which are two very different questions that we have to answer in life. And so I asked my father and I asked my guidance counselor. They were two people in my life that I asked this question: what do I do? How do I transition from high school? Like, I had people in my class, even though they were as young as I was at the time, they were already going to university and doing different things. And I was like, geez, I don't really know what I want to do with the rest of my life. And I think that being that age is very young to have that expectation, but that's a different conversation. So I asked my guidance counselor when I had to make choices of my subjects. She said, well, just take a lot of general courses. And then, when you want to make a decision, you could just change in that direction. And so I did a lot of like one of everything, right? I did the basics: English language, English literature, math. I did one science. I picked the easiest one to me, which was biology. I took some business courses. So I did typing, I did computer applications, I did a social science. I think that was history I went with. And what else did I do? I did two languages. So I did Spanish. So you see, it had no real focus on anything. And I'm actually grateful for that because it made me feel a bit well rounded. So I just felt like I had a good base that I could jump off anything. And so at the point of graduation now, I asked my father, I said, what do you think I should do? I really don't know what direction. And he said, well, why not try hospitality? I was like, hospitality? Because of course now my family was in the hospitality industry, in ground transportation. So my grandfather, my father's father, was actually an icon in his day. Older folks know of him, and they know of him as Bowe. Of course, that was a play on his name, and he made it a brand, way back in those days, and we didn't know what branding was. But he made that his brand. He was known as Bowe, and he wore a bow tie every single day. And he started as a taxi driver, and then he and a couple of his sons, a couple of my uncles, they formed a tour company called B&B Tours. And my dad formed his own tour company called Bahamas Pleasure Tours. My sister worked with him, a couple of my sisters worked with him. And that's where I cut my teeth, actually, on the world of work. Between my dad's company and my sister's company, she opened a children's clothing store called Little People. It actually is where Home Fabrics is today in Madeira. Her store was on the end of that building. And that's where I cut my teeth on work and business. And my dad's company, I was 16 years old, and I did my first training session on customer service. He had some ladies that worked in the hotels representing the company as tour desk agents, and they would sell tours and for the company. And they asked me to do a customer service session with them, and I couldn't. I still to this day don't know how I did that because I don't know what I knew about customer service at 16, but I guess it was good. And from there, I went to the Bahamas Hotel Training College and I studied hotel management. It wasn't called that, but that's what it was for 2 years. And they had an agreement with Florida International University. So any of the graduates from BHTC, we called it, could transfer straight into their third year of college once they did hospitality management. So again, I asked my guidance counselor, well, what should I do? Because I got this inspiration that I wanted to, didn't really want to work directly in the hotel. And so she said, well, go in for your first semester and then change your major. And so that's what I did. I went into my third year at Florida International University, did one semester of hospitality English at the hospitality school, and that didn't happen. I was rejected by the current executive director. Student, but this is life, and I'm sharing this story. I'm sharing my career journey with you to let you know that sometimes we have goals and we have dreams, but life also has twists and turns, but it takes you to the place where you want to be. And so I ended up teaching at St. John's College, um, and I love that experience. So it gave me an experience of teaching junior high, and I taught English language and literature, grades 7 to 10. And I met some amazing young people, and I studied teaching. I just didn't get to do my teaching practice and finish the whole certificate because I changed schools. I actually got an opportunity to go to the hospitality school after 4 years. And life is so funny that the new executive director, her daughter was in one of my English classes. And she remembered at the time that I was rejected because I had actually written an article about it that was published in the paper about how students return from college and their dreams are shattered when these doors are slammed in their faces. And I wrote the article really to apply for another job. And I think they were being a little trapsy and they published the article and they still didn't give me the job. But it got me the job that I actually wanted. And so I met some amazing young people at St. John's, many of them today in our community because they are doing fantastic things in their lives, in their careers, in their family people, their teachers. They are, some of them are celebrities and icons that many of you know. I had the opportunity to teach them at St. John's, and so I'm grateful for that. And went on to the hospitality school, and it was there that I got this thirst for human resources. I'm so grateful that our executive director was very much into training and developing the staff. And so we had a number of opportunities to pursue certification. And so I did one in vocational technical education. I did one in human resource administration. I became certified as a hospitality educator, a hospitality trainer, just so many opportunities to develop myself as I was still exploring. Because even though I felt like I wanted to be a teacher, there were aspects about it that I did not like. And so based on my personality, I'm very much a short-term person. I like bursts of things, bursts of excitement, and then on to the next thing. And so teaching in a structured environment that way, to me I felt like I was strangling being in that structured environment, and the term was so long. Each term is 3 months long, so that was driving me nuts. So for me, I always had to figure out ways of how could I not only keep my students excited, but I needed to keep me excited because this was long. Every week, every day, gosh. So I would try to find ways to be really creative. And of course, it got me into some trouble because the administration was like, your classes are too noisy and you need better control. And I was like, man, but we having fun. I used to be doing all sorts of things that for me was thrilling. And I base it on an English teacher that I had who's still around today. He's at UB. But he made our classes so exciting that it gave me this thirst to share knowledge and to be open. And so I ended up really actually getting a master's degree in human resource development, which focuses on developing people in organizations and consultancy. So looking at how you can assess training needs and create programs that meet those needs specifically, or any other need in an organization, looking at processes, looking at people problems. So for instance, if people approach me as a trainer and say, you know, my staff is low morale and we need them to be motivated, I wouldn't just go in and do some hype up session. My training as a consultant and a trainer will make me ask certain questions, like, why is the morale low? What's happening in the organization? What are some of the behaviors that are being exhibited? And when you start to ask those questions, then you realize that there are some other problems going on that need to be diagnosed and fixed in an organization. And so I spent a number of years doing that, freelancing and doing that type of thing for companies. Went into government for a while, worked at the Ministry of Youth for 2 stints. I worked with the Fresh Start program, as a matter of fact, and I worked also with the National Youth Service program, leading those areas, and went into private sector, again in human resources. I landed my first HR management job in Abaco. Amazing experience. And I realized that I love startup projects, because I had to go in and actually create a lot of things, put a lot of things in place. And that was very thrilling. And so all of these experiences now began to shape for me what I realized was my career. And I realized as well, by working in human resources, that there were some things that companies looked for. There was some things that employers wanted and needed from the people that worked for them. And so as I fast forward to today, where I am still working in human resources, currently at the Ministry of Tourism, but still consulting, it's given me a really good vantage point of what employment looks like as an employee, as an employer, as a consultant, as a coach, all of these, and a mentor, all of these different things really has given me a 360-degree look of what employment looks like. And so as we go through this session today, I want you to drop in those questions or unmute your mic and let's talk about some things, so that if you have questions or frustrations or anything, I would love to be able to let's talk through them, because I think it's really, really important. There are some things that I believe as HR professionals, some things we've kept as a mystery to people, and in some of our practices that I think we need to change. You know, for instance, if you come out of an interview and hopefully you get a response that tells you if you got the job or not. And if you didn't, you know, people would love to get some feedback, wouldn't you? Like for jobs that I didn't get, I would love to know what was the reason. Because if I knew the reason, then I could fix that for next time. You know, I can fix that and I can work on myself and work on, maybe it was my interviewing skills, maybe it was how I was dressed, maybe it was just my personality, you know, so I could decide, you know, taking the meat from the bones, you know, and being able to say, well, okay, that probably was their personal preference, or yeah, this is something that I really, really need to work on. So I would like to offer that to all of us today who are here in the session, as far as I'm able to as an HR professional, to hear some of your things that you want to know and things that may frustrate you about the job search process or even employment in general. So we are going to talk about today really giving you a definition of human resources. I don't know if any of you are interested in human resources as a field, as a profession. I'm noticing that there's a huge upswing and interest in human resource management. I teach human resource management part-time at Synergy Bahamas, and I've noticed that we have had to actually have like 2 sections of classes open. The classes are so big, the interest is so wide for this field. And so we're going to just talk about what the components of HR management is, And then we'll look at some types of career transitions that you may find yourself in or know of people in, and how to prepare for those. And we'll look at some resume tips, some interview tips, and some strategies to overcome the challenges of the job search, job changing, job careers, and so forth. So Stefan tells me that, I'm the only session for the day, only masterclass for the day, so we can go as long as we want. So if at the end of that you have questions, definitely we want to open the floor, and feel free to drop things into the chat. I'm actually looking at that as well, and I'll address it as you drop it in. All right, so let's rock and roll. Human resource management as a field, a profession, like any other profession, has gone through its evolution over time. So as we would refer to as back in the day, and it probably would be more in the Industrial Revolution, in the 1950s or so, it really was referred to as personnel management. And it does not have the look that it has today. So it primarily functioned on the administrative aspects of human resources and managing people. So they would hire people, they would keep great records, they would make sure people got paid, so it was payroll administration, and pretty much making sure that if people left the organization, that was also done properly, and working with the managers to ensure that things happened at work. There may have been training and that sort of thing, but essentially those were the primary functions of personnel. And so as the profession began to evolve into human resource management or human resources, referring to the people not as personnel, which can have a very cold or clinical sound to it, it acknowledged the fact that the people that worked in an organization was also a resource. Not just the money, not just equipment, not just the marketing and product development and all of these other things and services and customer service and all of that, but that the people were important. People mattered in the business. And so it's evolved to incorporate a lot of different components that you would see on the screen here. And even now, it has evolved to, companies are now calling it people management, even moving away from that word human resource, because they said, it still makes people sound like a thing. And so you will see some companies refer to the area as people, the people department, or they refer to it as talent department, talent and culture, people and culture. So that's like the new hip and sexy terminology for human resource management today. And today you even would hear terms like HR or an HR professional being a strategic a strategic business partner. And that means that HR should be working alongside the business to ensure that business goals and objectives are met. Because in its evolution, it was recognized that one of the flaws of HR professionals was that they didn't really understand the business in which they worked. So they worked for companies, but they didn't understand the business, what that company was actually in business to do, how that business worked, how that business functioned, and how the people connected to it, and how HR as a function can help the business to meet its goals through its people. And so this is where now you have certain competencies, certain behaviors and skill sets that are required of HR professionals today, like being able to think like a consultant. You operate as an internal consultant, being able to recognize and diagnose problems. When you look at staffing and all these other issues, how does this now affect the business? And so the higher you get in human resources, the more strategic you ought to be. Strategic in that you're thinking about, how does this relate to the business? So it'll make probably a little bit more sense as I go through each of these steps, okay, or each of these functions. So let's look at recruitment, selection, and introduction. And so that is really where we are talking about, where do we find our staff? That's recruitment. So when we talk about this now, hand in hand with the job search, how to write resumes and all of this other stuff, that's a part of what you need to do as an applicant to meet a company's need that is recruiting. Okay, so you may have some people who that's all they do. So in HR, you can be considered what is called a generalist, or you could be referred to as a specialist. So a generalist is someone who would have responsibility for all of these areas, and you would have to manage all of these areas. Sometimes you may have to do it by yourself. You have HR departments of one. You know, you may just be the HR manager. Sometimes people have been like an office manager with these responsibilities. And you may just have an assistant, what we would call an HR assistant or an HR coordinator, which is like an entry-level position into the HR profession. So I'm functioning now as a generalist, but I am also a specialist because I am a learning and development specialist, right? So you'll see that training and development, that's my specialty, but I also am a generalist. So I can manage all of these areas, okay? So recruitment, selection, and introduction. So with recruitment from the employer standpoint now, when you look at, for instance, talent management, that orange block, right? You are looking at, and succession and career planning, you're looking at positions in the organization that need to be filled. Those positions relate to certain functions in the company that also need to be fulfilled based on the business demands. So you should only have vacancies that are based on the needs of the company. So let's give an example. If we give a very relatable example, if you're a food delivery company, right? Delivery is a hot thing right now. So when you think about that, and drop it in the chat, I'm going to ask you. Let's think about it. Let's think like HR people today. So you are the owner of a food and beverage delivery company. Who do you think you need to hire? Well, first of all, let me backtrack. What are the functions that need to be fulfilled in your company? What are the functions that need to be fulfilled in your company? And you can open your mic or you could drop it into the chat. All right, drivers, we need drivers. Licensed drivers, hello. A proper transportation system. Okay, IT, logistics, customer service, CSRs, a person to receive the calls, driver, a way to take orders and payment, insured vehicles. This is excellent. So we're thinking like business owners right now. What do I need to make this company run successfully? Okay. Marketing, absolutely. That's one of my students. I think I saw, was Derek here? Yay, hi Derek. Yeah, all my fantastic students. Accounts, that's right. Hey Rodney. Hi Sandina, thank you. Yes. Boy, Felicia, you got to be in HR because you are definitely interested in compliance. Every answer she has given is making sure these people operating by the book and by the law. I see you. A business plan, absolutely. So the business plan will give you the framework and the structure of the business before you get started. So we need all of those different positions. So now we need to think about, based on the volume of the business, how many of these people do we need and at what level? So do we need, so drivers, how many drivers do you think we may need? And again, the business plan will speak to that, because if we are operating on New Providence, maybe we're dividing New Providence into sectors. And then we're also looking at the businesses that we are going to be getting the food from, the areas that they are in, and thinking logistically now about how are we going to manage traffic and movement and wait time at the restaurants or the food places, picking up the stuff and all of that, right? So we need to think about how many people we would need for each role and at what level do we need them at. So for a company like this that may be a startup, would we need a bunch of managers, or do we need a few key managers, and making sure that they're actually managing a process or managing people? Because a lot of times we like to make everybody a manager when they don't have anybody to manage. So do we need someone to manage the drivers? So we're going to have a lead driver, or are we going to, as the CEO, we're going to manage the drivers? How many drivers do we need? Right? Yes, what types of vehicles and so forth. As a marketing person, we can also think about, do we need people to be full-time or part-time? Because again, now we're looking at our budget and yes, return on investment. And so we need to be able to make money. So labor costs are the highest cost. One of the highest costs in business is your staff costs, because not only are you looking at salary, but you're also looking at benefit, which is that blue one, performance and reward management. Okay, so you have to think about, do these people need to be part-time? Are they contractual? Which means you're contracting them to perform a service and you just pay them for the service, which means then you're not responsible for their NIB or benefits, which is a route that a lot of companies are going to today. Do we need to outsource some of these services, like accounts and marketing, for instance? So that's a way for marketing. You can partner with or outsource the marketing function to Stefan and his company. And so then you're paying him for the service. And again, you don't have to pay for benefits. You don't have another employee to worry about. You're just paying the service. You can outsource your trainer or training function to me. Ha ha ha. You can outsource your accounts function to Rodney. You see what I'm saying? So when you're looking at recruitment and staffing, right, and planning for your team, all of these considerations are taken into account. So when you see a job posted, that is after all of these strategic conversations have happened in a company. And that's why sometimes things take a little long, because these are some of the conversations that are happening behind the scenes. Okay? And this is why sometimes when we know companies have downsized, for instance, or they've had layoffs, that they may not necessarily be hiring in those areas, because they may have decided that I don't want this element of my business anymore. Maybe I could just outsource this and I don't need to have this function in my business anymore. Or I don't need to rehire as many people as I had before. When people downsize, it's because they're trying to probably cut expenses and they're probably trying to be more efficient. And so again, they're looking at who can best perform this function for me so that I can do this successfully. And this backdrop actually is very good for you to understand as you go into your job search, Because at the end of the day, people are looking for value. People are looking at how can you hit the ground running and make me money? How can you get this function done so that my company can function? If you come in and you can't function, and I have to micromanage you, I have to be on top of you, I have to keep checking your work, I have to actually do your work because you're not doing it and I need it to get done, then who then becomes irrelevant? You. You're not adding value to the organization. So Felicia is saying 5 full-time drivers with the owners jumping in as the business grows, hire part-time workers, and have, yes, 2 years driving experience, but make exceptions based on skill levels. Okay, good. Training and soft skills, customer service is also needed, absolutely. A small team of management for a startup. The amount of drivers should match the demand and the interest of the population after sufficient market research has been conducted. Absolutely correct. And in actual fact, I ran into one of the owners of one of these companies, and he said that their growth has been so phenomenal because of the lockdown that they were looking to hire like 40 drivers. Amazing. So people talk about, the tough impact on the economy. That's for some industries, but for some, this is their time to shine. So in HR, recruitment, selection, and introduction. Recruitment then is, how do we now? Okay, so we need 5 full-time drivers. Where do we find these drivers from? That is recruitment. Where do we find the drivers from? Talk to me. Where do we find them? How do we find them? We just call 5 of our boys, 5 of our cousins. Where do we find these people from? So online, ads, social media, on things for sale. Probably references or referrals. Now, I want to stick a pin right there because that is one of the top ways that people recruit, because it is easier if I trust you. And Shaquille says, boy, I know the perfect person that you could hire, and I don't have to worry about reading a bunch of resumes and doing all of these different things, because I trust Shaquille and I trust her judgment, his judgment, then his judgment. Then I would say, you know what? Let me call this person that Shaquille is recommending. Right? And so even though I may place the ad, I may never look at the responses because people that I know and trust have referred people to me. And this is why, and later on in this session, we'll talk about why it's important to leverage your network. Okay? So yes, advertise using print, social media, company website, word of mouth, absolutely. So this is where typically people will find the people that they're looking for. Even associations, right? So they'll go to professional organizations like the Bahamas Society for Human Resource Management, or they may go to places like the Department of Labor that has a job bank, a talent bank of people registered, or your professional organizations, which make up a part of your network. So your Rotary, your Kiwanis, church. People do a lot of recruiting in church, I could tell you. Where else? I'm trying to think of where else we can find people. But you get the general idea of where people can look for people. Now, selection is sifting through the resumes, the interview process, and then the hiring process. So selection will be where now we're looking at these resumes. And of course, you can imagine that you can get hundreds of resumes for one job, right? Even thousands. And then you have to look through the resume to see the value. And so this is why your resume is so important, because your resume is your gateway to the next stage in the selection process. So based on your resume, and what makes a strong resume? So I'll ask you that question. Since we are functioning as business owners, what would make a resume stand out to you? For our food and beverage delivery company, that's our company now. What would make a resume stand out to you? You have gotten 50 resumes for people who want to be drivers. So their experience, absolutely. So you will be looking at, do they have relevant experience in this area, in this job? What else? The skill sets. So the thing is, they may not have a direct experience, but sometimes hiring managers, HR professionals will look for relevant skills that could be transferable. So if this person has shown where they're responsible, they can solve problems, they can think critically, they're not looking like they jump from job to job. They look at that too, the length of time that you would have spent on a job. They look at that. The qualifications, exactly, right? What certifications or certificates, degrees, that type of thing. Yes, their attributes, their qualities. Okay, and so if the resume has all of these components and it looks good, it's well written, it doesn't have a lot of grammatical errors, it doesn't have some of the mistakes that people make with resumes, and we'll talk about that too, then I may put them in the let me take a second look pile. I may want to interview this person. Okay? And then we set up those interviews, and there may be levels of interviews. So I know people complain a lot of times, why you have to have so many interviews? You know, and so here's the reason behind that. So you could possibly have an initial interview that may be your screening, say 3 to 9 interviews. Yes, that is true. That is true. And as a company, we would want to minimize that as much as possible, simply because it's time consuming and it's frustrating to the applicant to have to keep coming back and then at the end of the day not get the job. It's like, man, I had to get dressed up and find my way out and go through the emotional stress of this interview process, and then y'all still don't hire me. That's what people is try and bust up the place. So the initial interview is the screening interview. So this is where we kind of get a feel for you, right? We trying to get a feel for your personality, your work ethic, to see if what you have in your resume is true. Because we could get a feel for, if I ask you certain questions and you can't answer me, then I'll be like, okay, either you didn't write this resume or you fluffed this up so that you could get this job. And we're also looking for fit, organizational fit. Okay, so we're looking at, do you have the personality skill set that would help you to gel in our organization, right? Every organization has a culture, a way of operating. So if it's a fast-paced, customer service oriented business, then if you're coming off as a low energy, sour person in the interview, then it's a no, right? It's a hard no. And we're moving on to the next person. So that's what people are looking for. So the question is, what if you are nervous and the content of your resume is correct, but your nervousness throws you off? That is legit, because I know a lot of people that freeze in interviews, and they are amazing candidates, but they just don't know how to get past that fear of interviews. And that's something that you would need to work on, and that's something that you would have to get maybe some coaching around. interviewing skills and how to manage the nervousness, because we all get nervous. I don't care what level you are. You all have that feeling of that edge of, I don't know what to expect. What if I can't answer the question? And some of the ways that I have learned to overcome that is just to really up level my confidence in myself, because that's really where it comes from. It's your belief in yourself and the confidence that I'm good. And when you can rest in that knowledge, you know, we're not perfect, but when you can just own the fact that I have value and I have something to bring to the table, I know that I could do that job if I was given the opportunity. And so this is your opportunity to market yourself and to show these people that you are. And so a lot of times you are judged on your personality. And when you clam up and when you can't answer properly, you know, and it depends on the interviewer, because some people are kind and some people will create a feeling of a safe space for you to have room to be nervous and kind of not count it against you. But some people are tough. Some people they ain't got no time for that. Like, if you can't function in this interview, you can't function on my job, so I don't need you. And so you have to be prepared for any eventuality. Introduction in this category is talking about what we would refer to as onboarding. And so this is now your introduction to the company. Once you have been hired and you sign off on all your relevant documents and you get your little employee number, you get your badge and you're official, I'm in, you know, and you could do your selfie and thing on social media, I'm in, woo! You could change your status and change your thing and put, you know, and I am this and this at so and so. I am a driver at the food and beverage delivery place. Woo! Right? And once you do that, then you can now, yes, you're absolutely right. The nervous ones can be top performers. And again, it leads to how we need to change as human resource professionals. You know, we need to change that. But anyway, that's a different topic. So once you get in, there are some things HR is responsible for to ensuring that people can now assimilate into the company. That is onboarding. So it will start off with more than likely an orientation. And you can have an orientation at 2 levels. You can have a general orientation. A general orientation is the orientation to the company. So this is talking about, you know, the vision of the company, the story of the company, how the company got started, who are the key people in the company, usually your top level managers, people you need to know, how you need to function in the company, where to find the restroom, you know, what time you take for lunch, all of these different types of things. Policies and procedures, very important. Those things are covered in an orientation. What are the rules? What are the terms of engagement? What's the culture like? You know, is this a fun company or is it more formal? You know, do we work in silence or do we actually have some jokes? Do we have social activities? Are there development opportunities? How can I grow in the company? All of those things would be covered in a general orientation. And then when you move to your department, then you can have a departmental orientation. And this is your introduction now to your actual job and how you would function in your department. And this is where you should be given now some specific instructions and training on how to do your job. So now we've introduced you to the company. And now, Mr. Driver, Miss Driver, this is how you drive for food and beverage delivery company. These are the standards that we expect. This is the time allotted for you to receive an order, pick up an order, deliver an order. This is what you say when you greet the customer. This is what you do when you hand over the food. This is how the package should look when you hand it over to the customer. This is the type of training that should happen at the departmental level. And you're right, a lot of companies fall down right here because we do not prepare people. And sometimes it's because of the business demand. So say, for instance, like that company that says, well, I need 40 drivers because the business is out of this world. We got so much business right now. Ooh, 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 ooh. And we get caught up in the operation. And then we grab up the first 40 people we could find. And you have a car? You have gas? You have a license? Okay, boom. Put this shirt on. Let's go. And then we wonder why when we get complaints that this person just fling the food at me or they just put it on my doorstep and they gone. And like, what are you doing? What are you thinking? That's not the kind of customer service that we want to deliver. Like, what are you thinking? You didn't give them a standard. You didn't give them a benchmark. You didn't instruct them on how they were supposed to do their job. Okay, so that is onboarding. Next one, personnel administration. This is really how you're managing the staffing that you do have as far as record keeping and making sure that we have the proper records in place. Our employment law speaks to certain things that we should have and that we should issue to people, that we should have on record. And so we should have an employee file. A lot of people are moving away from manual files into digital human resource information systems, so HRIS or HR management systems, HRMS, where it's an electronic automated process, which is good because in a time like this, that's very important where you may not be able to go into the office, but you can still access information and you're still able to generate reports or answer questions or perform certain functions for staff. So say, for instance, they want a job letter. You know, you would have that information when they started, the job that they're in, what their salary is, that type of thing. So that would be personnel administration. Training and development, my heart, my love, my passion. This is critical in an organization, and this also needs to be strategic. So as you would have heard me reference with the driver, so you have their onboarding training, but you may need ongoing training. So you may have found that you're operating for a while, things are going well, but you may have noticed certain things happening, like maybe certain violations happening, maybe they certain safety rules that they relaxing on, or maybe certain customer service is falling a little bit. This is their way of now being strategically offering training for these drivers and saying, hey, maybe we need a little refresher. Maybe we need to come in. Maybe we're adding a new service or we're adding a new company. If you have these delivery apps, you would get notifications in the apps that say, hey, we've added a new vendor. So you would probably need to do a training around the new vendor, you know, giving them some product knowledge information. This is a new vendor. This is the type of cuisine they offer. This is the type of stuff that they have on the menu. Maybe these are some of the restrictions. These are some of the requirements for this vendor, and we want to train them as they go. Maybe we want to train in different things that we're discovering. You know, maybe these people, they want to transition from being a driver into doing something else, and you want to offer some training in that area. Development is now where we are building the person. And it may not necessarily be related to the skill, but it may be related to the person, or it may be related to their soft skills, like their leadership ability, or their ability to problem solve, or their ability to use sound judgment, or to communicate. Maybe we need to develop them into, you know, how they need to engage, you know, better. Just how they approach their work, how to plan, and how to do different things. And so as we develop people along the way, we're looking at, it ties into career planning for some people, right? And so the training that we offer, the developmental opportunities that we offer. So say, for instance, we understand that we're going to need people like, you're the owner. I don't want to be the CEO, the COO, and all these other things in this organization. And maybe I see some potential in these drivers. And so let me start a management training program. That's a development program, because that now means that I'm going to prepare potential leaders for potential management position. So that would be considered a development program. Performance and reward management is how we manage their performance, how we develop them, how we assess it, how we measure the results. So that means now we would need to sit individually with each driver, and this can be formally and informally. And the more communication, the better, where we may collectively say, do a debrief at the beginning or at the end of every shift and say, hey, we delivered 5,000 meals today. Let's celebrate that. Woo, awesome job. Here are some of the things, some positive comments that our customers had to say, that it was fast, the food was hot and fresh, blah, 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 blah. Woo, let's keep that up. Here are a couple of complaints that we got. And it could be, the condition of the vehicle or the cleanliness of the vehicle. Right now, cleanliness is everything for everybody, right? So maybe you may want to talk about, if you need to keep your car clean, or, wipe it off at the end of every shift so that it's clean every day. Things like that would be pointers that you would give that particular person, or it may be a group training. Now, reward management is compensation and benefits. So compensation is your pay, your salary, and the things related to salary. So you should always, of course, be getting the NIB deductions, because that is mandated by the law. Any person that works in the Bahamas must have NIB paid on their behalf. And of course, there are different stipulations. If you're self-employed, you have to pay your own, and things like that, right? But stuff like that should be paid. Benefits are things, those add-ons to make the job attractive. So benefits could be medical insurance. Benefits could be tuition reimbursement. So that means if you sign up to take a course or a degree, based on if you pass or a percentage by which you pass, the company would pay you back the money you paid to take the course. Or they may pay for you to do training. Training is also considered a benefit, where the company may pay for you to go to a driver's conference. And, Uber may be doing a conference somewhere in California, and I paid for you, all expenses paid, to go to that driver's conference, right? And so other benefits could be, even like random things. It could be like dry cleaning. These are some of the benefits that you could hear about in some companies. Dry cleaning, gym membership. Let's see, what are some other like cool benefits? Sometimes it could be childcare. Sometimes it could be your children's school fees. Some companies offer that. Car wash, whee, that's it. Yeah, free car wash service, or you get a credit. You get an extra $15. Some people get an extra stipend to get their car clean. Yes, thank you, Lucretia. Company discounts. So you may negotiate discounts with companies on the island or other places that offer goods and services. And when you show your ID, you get discounts and favors. Yes, clothing allowance. So you get, if you don't wear a uniform, or they give you a stipend toward your clothes or getting your clothes dry cleaned. Gas vouchers, absolutely. So maybe once a month. Some people give phone vouchers, right? You get to keep a plan going, or you get minutes top up. You may get a cell phone, an actual company cell phone. You may get those type of things may be considered, perks on the job, right? Talent management, again, is how we are developing our talent and growing our talent. And that kind of works hand in hand with the next one, succession, which I think we do a very poor job in our country, because we wait until people are at the point of retirement, or we wait until, people quit to then start looking at the successor. And for every job, we should have a plan for how are we going to fill this position, especially if it is a hard to fill position. Because when it is a hard to fill position, which means they're not it's not easy to find someone in the skill set that you need for that position or the qualities that are needed, then we're back to this recruitment thing. And it may take a very long time to fill that position, which means that function is not being performed, or it's not being performed well, because now somebody may have to double up, and now they can become overwhelmed, or they can't manage the responsibilities of 2 jobs, which tends to happen. You have some companies that will downsize, and then you expect it to do 2 and 3 jobs because they're saving money on the one end, but then they're stressing you out on the next end. And then you quit, and then they're in a worse problem. They now need 4 people to hire instead of 2, right? So succession is very important. Looking ahead, planning ahead, what are some things that we need to do? So that management development program, is very important, because now you have a pool of people that you could pick from. Cross-training is another good way of planning for succession. People may be interested in another area, and you can have opportunities to cross-train in that area. Maybe an immersion where you get to work there for a week, a month, 3 months, or just where you maybe a day or a few hours out of the week, you get to go and learn in a different area. Cross-training is a very good strategy, because it allows a lot of people to have a lot of different skill sets so that they can perform different functions as needed as well. Not to abuse it, but imagine what's happening now. You have people who are on reduced hours, you have a reduced workforce, and you may have to have people who are versatile. Maybe I can't keep you on as a CSR, but maybe I could keep you on as a something else. And so you could work in that other area until business gets better, and you could go back to the area of your preference. Labor relations, and this is tied to employee relations as well, is how we manage grievances, terms and conditions of employment, working conditions, the work culture, the well-being and engagement of employees. What does that mean? Now, the textbook definition of labor relations is the process of the relationship between employees, employers, management, and the union. Now, that's the actual definition of labor relations. So if it is a unionized company, so say now, drivers feeling disgruntled, you working us, we ain't get no increase in a year, you expecting us to come up with our own gas and this and that and all of this other stuff. So now the drivers vex, and they decide that they are going to form enlist a union to represent them with you, and to now negotiate better terms and conditions of employment with you on their behalf. And once those criteria is met, you could have a drivers union at food and beverage delivery company. And so now you have to not only manage the relationship between you and your employees, but you have to now manage that relationship with your employees and managers through the union. And so I know Sandina can talk about how that can be. That has its challenges, right? Because, I won't go any further, but the union has its place because, again, they represent people who have felt taken advantage of on the job. And they can make life very difficult for you as a business owner, especially when it comes to negotiating those benefits. Because they can come at you, well, our drivers need to have their birthday off with pay. And you may be giving them 2 weeks vacation. They need to have 4 weeks vacation with pay. And they coming at you hard. And they negotiating, and now what is that doing? That's driving up your costs, right? And all of this stuff they can negotiate on behalf of their people. So again, one of the remedies for labor relations is to have a great organization where people are happy to come to work and that we are concerned about their well-being, that we take care of, we have a healthy and safe work environment, that we try to minimize the toxicity, you know, or how we treat people, how we talk to people, how we manage people, that we don't have policies that make people feel diminished, that we don't oppress people on the job, because we have so many inhumane stories of how people, what things people have to go through just to have a job. You know, it's disheartening. And globally, employee engagement is down. I think the latest Gallup poll shows that only about 14% of the global workforce feels engaged. And what does engaged mean? Engaged means that I'm not just there for a paycheck. I'm not just clocking in and out, but I feel committed to this organization. I love what I do. I'm loyal. I would go over and above if it's required of me. In HR, we call that discretionary effort, which means the effort that you would give without requiring pay. So that means coming in early, leaving late. No, boss, I don't need no overtime pay. I'm doing this because I love it, right? Doing the extra. You know, you have some people who will go into their own pocket to make sure that their job happens. Teachers do it all the time. That's discretionary effort. And they do it because they love what they do. They'll do it even more if they love the organization that they work for. You know, they do it, teachers do it because they love the kids and they want to make sure that they have a great education. Other people do it because they love the customers. You know, they build relationship with customers and they want to see things done right, whether or not the company invests in it or not. You have some people who do that because you love it. Absolutely. And so, yes, COVID-19, I keep saying it over and over again, is a revealer. And a lot of things that we are seeing today doesn't mean that it's brand new. We can't blame COVID-19 for a lot of stuff we see going on today. These issues are not brand new. These were pre-COVID-19 issues that COVID-19 is magnifying. Crisis and change will magnify who you are. Success will magnify who you are. And so, yes, our organizations have to beef up how they operate. Human resource professionals have to beef up how they operate. HR professionals who just figuring out this online environment or just figuring out how to engage people. I heard some people who saying, you know, they were sent home or they have to work from home and that's it. Like there's no communication. They out there floating in the wind. Like they don't know anything of what's going on. There's no communication. There's nothing to keep them connected to the organization. So guess what's gonna happen? When people start recruiting again in earnest, a lot of people are not gonna wanna go back to the companies that they were with. Because they're gonna look at how they were handled in this period. And they will say, you know what? That's how you all treat me? Okay. Deuces, I am out of here. So labor relations, employee relations, critical components to HR management. And HR planning, this deals with the strategic element of HR, which should work hand in hand with the senior leadership of the company. And for those of you in HR, you would have heard this term used a lot, that HR needs a seat at the table. Have you ever heard that? That HR needs a seat at the table? And that means that HR should be positioned in the top leadership of organizations in order to influence and direct the course of how people are managed in an organization. And so it's discovered that if HR does not have a seat at the table, that's one strike against them. If the function of HR is not supported by top leadership, which is a very real situation that many HR people have to go through, lack of executive support, then it is increasingly difficult for you to do all of these fancy things. You will be called human resource management, but you will be relegated to personnel management. Just hire the people, keep us out of the labor board, keep them quiet, and fire them when we tell you to, or just make sure if they leave, we pay them properly, collect our company things, and let's keep it moving. When you say you can hire their replacement again, and that's what a lot of us HR people are up against, and that's what we fight. We are fighting for relevance. We are fighting for support. Support could be financial support so that we have the funding that we need to execute these things. Support could be where, as a trainer, I've always had to battle with, especially in the hotel environment, just letting the people come. Let the people come to train it. If you let them come, I can show you how valuable this will be to your organization, that they will perform better. They will have a better outlook. They will feel more confident in what they're doing. They will have a better attitude. They will love themselves and they'll love their job if you allow them to come. But when you keep restricting them from coming, or you allow them to come and then you keep calling them out, oh, it's so frustrating. You keep calling them out so they never get to complete the class. And everybody's just frustrated at the end of the day. And at the end of the day, they say training doesn't work. How can it work if you don't allow it to work properly? And then as HR professionals and training professionals, we need to offer the training properly as well. It needs to be relevant and it needs to match the needs of the operation. So if you know that you're not going to have a lot of time, what are some other ways that you could offer training that's going to match the needs of the operation? This COVID-19 has shown everyone that virtual training is king right now, and that virtual training can work. And so if this is the mode that we have to use to get people to learn, and maybe it is in their own time, maybe it's in company time, maybe it's in bite-sized portions, then we get it done. But that's what we do as strategic HR. We look at the needs of the business and we look at how all of these things can match the business. And we cannot be reactive. We cannot be reactive in what we do. Someone used that word before earlier, right? We need to be proactive as HR professionals. We need to be leaders as well. So if we see something coming, boy, I feel like preaching right there. If we see something coming down the pike, as HR professionals, we need to start preparing our companies for it. And Derek is in here, one of my students. He is a risk and anti-money laundering compliance professional. I got his whole title. And what he does is he helps companies look at business continuity. He did an amazing live on one of my webinars where he talked about people saying, we could have never prepared for COVID-19. We could have never prepared for this. And his answer to that was no. Yes, you can. Because when you think and act strategically, you think about scenarios of what could happen. What could happen? What if a war broke out that shut down the economies of the world? What if a pandemic happened? What if a natural disaster happened? You ask yourself a series of what ifs, and then you put plans in place. What if we have a situation like Dorian where you're out, communication is down? Then how are we going to communicate with each other? How will we reach staff? How do we identify who is essential? Who is essential staff? Who is critical to our operation? Who do we need to have functioning even in times of disaster? Or what if our systems are hacked? You see what Zoom has had to go through? They've had to go and beef up now their security. Look at all the internet providers. Everybody on the internet ready to break the internet. Everybody complaining about how sluggish the service is or how hard it is to remain connected. That means now these people have to plan for increase in usage, increase in traffic. That is what being strategic is. That is what being visionary is. And so This is very, very important for us as HR professionals to lead this side of things for our organization. And I'm so grateful that we've been able to do this at the Ministry of Tourism, and people have responded to it in ways that we weren't even able to imagine, where we may have struggled to get 15 people in a training room. We average 75 to 100 people in a virtual session every week. We are at the point now where we have 3 days dedicated to virtual sessions a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. On some days, we have 2 sessions a day. That's based on demand. People want it. But where are we as the professionals to make it happen in the organization, right? We're meeting now and talking as a team. How do we strategize? What are some of the research that we need to do now? Surveys that we need to send out to the staff to get a pulse of what's going on, or information that we need. Because guess what? Life's still going on. Business is still going on. There are things that we still need to do. We're pushing right now to automate our service. We're pushing very aggressively. We tried to do it before. At the end of the year, we were hoping to have been automated in January. And if they had listened, this is my I told you so moment, we would have been automated and we would have been in a much better place than we are now. But you know what? All things happen for a reason. And because this happened, it's given us even greater leverage to go back and say we need to automate our HR. We need to have access to information. We need to still be able to perform services. We need to still be able to manage certain functions, and we need to operate strategically in our organization. When we free up all these manual paper processes, it gives us more time to focus on things like engagement and training and position and succession, positioning the organization to succeed and to meet its goals. So any questions or anything, because I'm going to shift from this. I can't believe that we've almost like an hour and a half just on HR. So I must touch on the other areas so Stefan doesn't fire me. Any questions on HR management? Okay. So when we look at career transitions and preparing for your, we have a question?
Yeah, there's one on Facebook, and then I see Brittany has her hand up.
Okay.
What is the right way to answer the salary question, especially when you don't know the scale?
Great question. So if you don't know the scale for that particular company, you need to do some research. And whether that is you look online, and sad to say, some of the salaries that you would see internationally may be far higher than what it may be in the Bahamas. Not in all cases, but in some cases, especially for certain positions and entry-level positions. So you want to look at that and look at that as maybe your high-end range. And then if you are able to ask around people in your network who you may know in similar or the same position, what's the typical salary like in this particular job? So you try to get a low end, a mid-range, and a high end salary. Then you want to look at your skill set and experience and see where you may fit in that low, mid, high. And then you also want to look at your personal needs and expenses and what would be comfortable for you. To see, you don't want, and especially now, where people may be feeling a little desperate, a little concerned about their financial situation, and they may just want to grab up this job. You don't want to take a job that is lower than your expectation or your need and going to cause you more stress and frustration by taking the job. Because trust me, that stress and frustration will spill over, and you're going to resent that job. You're going to resent the people around you. And people want to know why you come into work angry every day. You're angry because that little thing is a real little thing. It's really little. when you approach that question, you want to go from an informed place as possible. And then you also want to, I would always recommend giving a range that you're comfortable with. And I would say anywhere from your mid-range to slightly under maybe the high range. Because here's why. For every job, as we would have talked about for all this time, companies plan, they budget for what they are prepared to pay in salary and benefits for every position. The reason why they ask you first is because they want you to throw out a figure that will probably be lower than what they are prepared to pay. And if it's lower than what they're prepared to pay, they will jump on it because that means that's a savings. That's money that can be applied elsewhere in the business, or I just don't have to spend that. And I show to my boss now that, hey, I'm a superb recruiter, an HR professional. Look at how much money I saved you, $20,000 on this position because you agreed to work for it. What it also does is if you are too high, it gives them a place of negotiation. And guess what? They will negotiate you down to a rate that is comfortable for them. So a couple of things. You need to be informed. You need to create a salary expectation that you can live with. And you need to be prepared to negotiate with confidence. Remember, I referred to that word again, the confidence, going into interviews with confidence. Well, the same way when you are negotiating for salary and benefits, you need to have confidence. As we would say, you need to be dry-eyed. And it's not that you are going to be inflexible, but you need to show that you're not desperate. And you need to show that you have value. So you don't have to be hostile or belligerent or aggressive, but at the same time, you know what you want and you're not afraid to say what you want. And that is where I find is a huge area of growth and improvement for people when they reach that stage of the selection process, that people just settle for anything and they fall short. They fall short and then they end up feeling so frustrated. And then they end up back on the job market again. Because guess what? It's harder now to sell to your manager, to sell to your boss, I need a raise. I want more money. And I'm sure all of you here who are working can attest to that it is so much more difficult to get an increase that's not maybe a regular annual exercise and at the level that you would like it to be. And you really have to show your value. And even if you show your value, they may say, well, it's not in the budget. We can't do it. Right now is not a good time. All of these things that we would hear them tell you that they're not prepared to pay any more money for this job. All right, so I see these questions. Let me hit them quickly now. Do you feel that staff should be comfortable with their HR manager and not afraid to speak to him? Definitely, yes. HR has to be trusted and worthy of trust, which means that HR needs to be confidential. Hello? We don't need to be talking people's business in other areas or using people as an example in meetings and all sorts of other things. Confidentiality is key. Come on. If you can't be confidential and you're holding, top secret information for people's organizations, then you don't need to be there. Because that means you talking my salary business, you might be talking, and this is why insurance companies have gone to coding diagnoses, because you had people in the organization when the insurance company sends what they call the explanation of benefits to say, someone went to use their card and they received a service, and then they would say this is what they received the service for, then you all about in the organization talking about what so-and-so got or what so-and-so was treated for. And that's why a lot of it is now self-service. where you deal directly with the insurance company. So you and your juicy mouth don't have to be talking about what I go into the doctor for. This stuff is wrong. And so HR professionals need to be trustworthy. If you want a seat at the table, you need to prove that you can have and be privy to certain conversations that you cannot repeat. Because guess what? At that executive level, things get hot and heavy. And you are required to discuss things about people's career, people's future, the future of the company. You are privy to information that you can't go back and sit around at the lunch table and be talking about with people. Child, you know, they planning to take away this whole department. Child, you know, you can imagine the problems that you're going to cause. Child, you know, they got a downside. Child, you know, this one got to retire soon. You know where we can find the person to. No, stop it. Stop it. You need to be confidential. You need to be trustworthy so that you can be trusted with more. It's a principle. It's a biblical principle. Whatever you're trusted with, if you can be trusted with it, you'll be trusted with more. So don't talk about I want to be on the executive when you cannot handle yourself in the role that you're in now from a confidentiality and a skill standpoint. Next question, because I'll talk about that all day. I don't know if you covered it already, but a great number of HR departments lack software managers. They have a great number of implementations of wonderful management systems like Kronos, etc., but no one with a great level of knowledge of how to actually manage them, causing a great number of employee delays in payment benefits, etc. Absolutely. You must have someone who actually manages the HRIS, those payroll systems or your management systems. And sometimes if the operation is small, then the HR professional does it. But again, that keeps you in the weeds, as they say. It keeps you in that transactional space of just doing the day-to-day, and you're bogged down on just doing tasks. When as HR, especially if you're in HR management, you need to be more strategic. You need to be above all of that. And so again, you may need to be able to negotiate to be able to hire someone. If only an officer or someone who has that skill set, it can be a part of their job. So for instance, if you have an HR administrator who can manage the system as well as the information and record keeping and all of that stuff. So yes, that is very important. How often should a company do training and emergency protocols? As often as possible, in particular, when you know that there are peak points. So for instance, we are approaching hurricane season. We need to be able to make sure that we have a disaster management policy in place, that we have a manual in place, that there's fire safety. There's now issues of with pandemics and looking at remote work and flexi work and staffing and how you manage performance for remote workers and all sorts of other things that need to be considered. And so as often as is necessary, I would say that those emergency protocols need to be revisited, especially if you see that they're being violated. So I'm sure that I already see where people are kind of relaxing on like physical distancing at certain stores. Like now you could just walk into stores. You don't have to wait sometimes. Like they've already started to relax, right? And so now you going into stores where people bumping up on you and it's crowded and all of that. Like we're already getting a little lax. And so we may need to beef that up again, and give that training and say, hey, and it may be the security officers. Let's make sure that we're practicing this physical distancing. We only need to have X amount of people in the store at one given time. You need to make sure that we have the markings on the floor and that people are utilizing that. Okay. What's the best way to present an idea for improvement in a particular area of your company that doesn't necessarily fall under your job portfolio, especially with COVID? As you said, things have come to the surface, not wanting to step on toes. This is a good question because, let me see. It's a good question because you are going to see things, But this is a question that now relates to your ability to be savvy in an organization. And what do I mean by savvy? Being able to understand office politics and also having good emotional intelligence, which means being able to show empathy and understand and manage relationships. So what do I mean by that? Because you say now, you're seeing things in other areas and you don't want to step on toes, but we know that this is a need. So you could approach that in a couple of ways. It doesn't have to be your idea that you propose from you or your function. It may be as simple as a conversation with the person whose function it is, and how you pitch that conversation and how you present that idea so that it doesn't offend that person and make them feel as if, well, what, you think I can't do my job, or you think I didn't notice that before, or you think right? How you position that could greatly determine how that conversation goes. If you pitch it as your own idea in a forum where, again, this person now is made to feel like, well, what you trying to do? Are you trying to show me up? Would you know, and then now you have friction between you and that person. Yeah, you may have gotten the idea was accepted, you may have gotten the accolades, but now what has happened? You created another problem, right? So I would suggest, if it's possible, for you to talk with the parties concerned first and not say, did you think of, or have you, you want to phrase it in a way where you want to acknowledge that they may have already thought about it, and then have a conversation around there, or, I have an idea, and, I have an idea, maybe you've already thought about it, right? When you pitch it that way, then it kind of gives them the feeling of, okay, she's acknowledging that I got some skill and that I am on top of my game and not making me feel bad about myself. See, and this is one of the things when we talk about being successful in a business and in successful in our jobs, is about navigating these relationships, and a lot of times when we just think self, then we get into a lot of problems with other people, and we need to be able to function with other people. And when it comes about, when the savvy part of it, what I'm talking about is understanding like who the players are, who are the influencers, what's the drama going on, because some people have relationships that have a backstory to it, and so you have to understand like all the nuances of an organization, like who in certain cliques. Like you need to know all of these things so that you know how to operate. Now it can make it feel like you're in a minefield, and it is, because you feel like you tiptoeing, because I don't want to set this bomb off here or set this bomb off there, and that's how a lot of workplaces are. But the savvier you are, the more successful and influential you will be on a job. Yes, Tiadra, strategic thinking and moving away from task-oriented is sorely lacking. What does it say about a company that has a high turnover? Absolutely. It says that something is wrong in that company. Now, identifying what is wrong is important, and it actually is a part of an HR function as well. And you can get that information by, again, you doing engagement or satisfaction surveys through the course of the year. You can do that through doing exit interviews. So where you sit with people before they leave an organization and you ask them what their employee experience was like. And if they raise certain issues and you see patterns of behavior, then it allows you to go back and address it. But a lot of times, high turnover can involve a couple of things. It can actually be a company strategy. It could be where some companies don't want to keep people on for long periods of time. It can be a seasonal type of job. It could be where they attract certain types of people that will not stay long on a job. And that's positive. That could be a positive thing, like college students, right? Places like fast food places and things like that were built on that type of person. Someone who needed to make some money for a period of time and then they move on. And a lot of great people in our communities talk about getting their start in places like McDonald's. The Honorable Michael Pintard is one of them. right? The restaurant industry in America thrives off college students. People who could be doing their PhD, but they're a server in a restaurant. And so, of course, that will tell you that they're going to have a very short shelf life. Sometimes it is the industry and the expectation of the industry that you move around and that you leave companies. The hospitality industry is one of them, right? In particular, chefs. A chef could be in a job for 1 or 2 years and it probably won't count against them that much, especially if they're moving around internationally. It makes them that much more marketable, right? To show that they have a variety of experiences and experiences a variety of cuisine, or they have a specialty in a particular cuisine and they've moved up the ranks and shown their progression. So it depends on the industry as well. Most times we see high turnover though, where the environment is bad in some way. And whether that's working conditions, whether that is compensation and benefits, whether that is how people are treated, how people are managed, the work hours or the workload, the expectation. You have some companies that expect you to work super hard, all sorts of crazy hours, and then it now begins to interfere with your work-life balance, with you being able to spend time with your family or spend time with yourself to pursue personal interests, just your personal health and well-being. You're exhausted, you can't function, you're tired all the time. All of those things could be reasons why people leave a company, which leads me to this point of career transitions and identifying what types of transitions that you may be in. So types of career transitions are voluntary and involuntary. So voluntary is when you choose to leave, you choose to move on. So I want to change jobs, I want to work someplace else, or I want to change my career. Involuntary is when you don't have a choice in the matter. This is when the company makes the decision. Voluntary can also be, I guess, a hybrid of both. But retirement can be both voluntary and involuntary, because we know some people who aren't ready to retire, but they're forced to because of their age and policies and so forth. And then layoffs. So whatever that context may be, whether that's a downsizing, whether that's the situation that we're in now, it's temporary or whatever. The company makes a decision about your employment status. So what type of career transition are you in, if you are in? And are you clear about what you want next? Because this is important. We can transition, but we need to know what we want. One of the things that COVID is showing us now, people are really getting very introspective, and they're reflecting now about what they want as it relates to work. People are working from home and are deciding, do I want to work in an office again? Do I want to be out there in the field again? Do I want to go back on a job? People are asking themselves these questions now about what they want next. And another important question to ask yourself is there anything stopping you from achieving your next move? Can you identify anything that's stopping you from achieving your next move or going on to the next thing? And it may be things like qualifications, or it may be financial obligations, family obligations. It's important to identify those things, because sometimes those things are not based on reality. And I'll say that because sometimes the things that we feel are stopping us may be rooted in a limiting belief that we have about ourselves. It may be rooted in fear. It may be rooted in impossibility thinking or negative thinking. There are possibilities for everything. And I'm not saying that because of my brand as the Limitless Life Coach. I truly believe that because it's true. And anything that you think is an obstacle for you, there is a solution to get past it. There's a solution to get past it. And so it's important to identify what those things are so that you can also begin to look at, well, what's really stopping me from getting past this hurdle? Does that make sense for you? So identifying where you are in the scheme of things. For some of you, this is maybe very reflective time and you're thinking about, what do I want next? What if they call me back? Do I really want to go back? What is it? And then what do I do? What do I want? And then what is stopping me? And is it based in reality or is it based in a limitation that I perceive? How do we prepare for our next career move? How do we move on? And of course, for each, it has its own challenges. And of course, for involuntary career moves, it comes with a sting and even a stigma attached, because it doesn't matter how you slice it. If someone tells you that I don't need you anymore, it does not feel good, even if it's for a legitimate reason. Even if it's because they're making changes in the business, they can't afford it, we're in a crisis, the business is closing, we still feel some type of way. We still feel like, well, why didn't they choose me? There's a level of rejection that happens there for us. And we have to deal with that. We need to be able to face those emotional impacts of transitions. And even for the voluntary ones, any change creates a sense of loss, creates a feeling of the emotion of grief. And so even if I want to change jobs, I'm frustrated to no end. I deserve to get more money. I deserve the next position. And you get it. And you are excited. You can't wait to start. But you're still going to feel a sense of loss because what? You're leaving something behind. That experience is coming to an end. And there were things about it that you actually did enjoy. You may have been there for a number of years, and there are attachments that you have. You have friends maybe that you're leaving behind. You have the feeling that, you're a part of something. You're a part of a group. And now you're no longer part of that group. But even though you're making the best decision for you, it's still going to bring up those feelings for you. I remember when I made the very difficult decision to leave Bahamar. That was very hard for me because I was attached and connected to that. I believe in the vision of it. I had tons of people that I loved working with there. I got used to driving there every day and walking through the parking lot and going through and talking to people and going through security and all of these other different things. It becomes habitual, and you get attached to it, and you attach to the people, you attach to the place, you attach to the vision, but you have to make certain decisions for yourself that will take you in a different direction. So there is a sense of grief and loss, but there's also that sense of excitement and celebration as well. And you will experience that in a new experience as well, because then you will be like, well, this isn't like where I was before, and then you start to have those type feelings, and then, oh wow, I wonder if I'll make friends here. I wonder how they'll perceive me, or I wonder if they'll accept me. And though you have all of these different things going on, it's very important to prepare yourself for that. And also the physical things that you need to prepare for as well. So here are some tips to prepare yourself. Get clear about what you want next. Know what you want. Write your career goals and make them SMART. So that SMART is an acronym for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. So you want to make sure that you just don't have big, broad goals like I want to be a manager one day. I want to own my own business. That's not specific. It's not measurable, because when you measure it, you're able to tell, am I on track or not? Is it achievable? Yeah, it's achievable. Is it realistic? Yes, it's realistic, but then it doesn't tell you how you're going to get there to achieve it. Is it time bound? No. So if you say that I want to be on this job for 2 years, and in 2 years I want to be a supervisor or manager, then that gives you some more specifics, and then now it tells you within this 2 years What are some things that I need to do to close that gap, to prepare me for this 2-year goal? You have some people who say, I only want to be in a particular profession for about 10 years. And after 10 years, I want to be in my own business. That tells you what you need to do in that 10 years. You may set a financial goal. You may be like me and a terrible saver. And you may say, you know what? By the end of 2020, I want to have my baseline emergency fund saved with $1,500 in it. And then by December, you need to have that $1,500 saved. So the same applies to any goal. It needs to be smart. Work with your network. This is critical to prepare yourself. Let the people in your trusted circles know you are in transition. And notice I said trusted circles. You don't want to be blabbing to everybody who, especially if you're on a job, and then they go back and tell your HR or tell your boss or somebody that, child, they looking. And the next thing you know, you on the next layoff line. And you have some very trapsy people like that. So you have to be very careful of who you are sharing information with. And but it is important to let people know. And I'll tell you why. Because a lot of people will come to me and say, well, hey, do you know anybody looking for XYZ? Employers do it. And people who are looking for a job in that area do it. And it's quite often where those two intersect, where a business owner or an employer or manager will say to me, hey, I'm looking for someone. If you come across anybody, let me know. And if somebody tells me, hey, if you hear of anybody hiring, looking for this, let me know. And I will say, hey, somebody just asked me. They're looking for somebody in this area. Let me connect y'all. And remember I talked about those referrals? That's how it happens. And so that's how that referral will get on the top of the list. So work with your network. This one is key. And I'm going to be doing some additional training in this area. Develop your personal, and I need to say professional brand. Develop your brand, people. You are a brand. Whether or not you have a business, if you have a business or not, if you're a career professional or an entrepreneur, you have a brand, even outside of your business. Your business has a brand and you have a brand as the person, right? So you have to make sure that you have a great resume, you have a professional bio. Do you know how many people do not have a bio? Like as I plan events and even in organizations where, you have to send out announcements or you introduce people, they don't have a bio. They don't have a bio. And they're out there like, they may be a speaker or they're out there doing things and they're positioning themselves as a professional. But if someone asks, well, can I have a bio, which is a snapshot of who you are professionally, and they don't have that. That is critical for you to have. That's a basic. And this one, big pet peeve of mine, professional headshot. Let's go, people. Let's go. Let's go. We have a number of people right in this Bridge Masterclass who could help you out with that. A lot of other people that I can recommend. A lot of professional photographers out there who can help you with that. Get a professional headshot. Stop taking these selfies and putting it on LinkedIn and all these other things. And that ties into having a strong online presence. Get a professional headshot. We do not need to see you in your car. We do not need to see you in your club clothes and things where I gotta crop you up to your chin because I don't need to see what you got going on under there. Hello, somebody. Let's have a professional image. It speaks volumes, okay? Especially if you're on that search. Have a strong online presence. If you do not have a LinkedIn account, you need to create one today. This is my coaching challenge to you. Create that LinkedIn account. Get on LinkedIn. Employers are on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is like the go-to place for everything professional. And if you never heard about LinkedIn, Google it and get with it because you should know about it. All right. If you're on LinkedIn, you need to beef up that profile. And LinkedIn helps you. It gives you a gauge and it tells you if you're getting closer and closer and closer to having a very strong profile that would be attractive to recruiters, or building your professional network. So I've connected with countless HR professionals all over the world, other business people, entrepreneurs, anything that I'm interested in, anybody that I'm interested in, you can find on LinkedIn and you make amazing connections. I've made amazing professional connections, gotten opportunities. People that are speaking at this conference that I'm doing next week, I got from LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the key. It is the professional Facebook, the professional Instagram, right? So I can't stress that enough. If you have a profile already, you need to make sure that it is as thorough as possible. It is your online resume. And you will notice that for some jobs that you apply for, you wouldn't even have to fill out a form. You will see it on LinkedIn. They'll call it Easy Apply. And all you have to do is click that button and it will send your entire LinkedIn profile to those people to review. All the content from your LinkedIn profile. It is your online resume. So you want to make sure that your bio, and we talked about that is really good, that you have all of the relevant work experience, that you have all of your educational training, that you even have your personal interests, that you have opportunities that you want to be considered for. All of that you can put on your LinkedIn profile. And again, your strong online presence may be to clean up your other social media accounts. Now, even though they may be your personal pages, employers today are checking you out online in your entirety. So you may have that nice professional headshot on LinkedIn, but if they have access to your Facebook page and honey, you turning up on there, they are going to hold that against you. Is that right? Is that wrong? Who's to say? But that's what's happening. And so even the things that you may rant about on your page will tell a lot about you, the type of person you are. They will look at that and say, is this a person who will cause a lot of problems on the job, cause a lot of conflict? You know, they have maybe personal views that don't gel with the values of our organization and what we stand for. Trust me, all of this is connected. And if people could get that sense of you before they even, you know, this is now at the point where they have your resume, but now they're considering, do I want to bring this person in for an interview? Or maybe they interviewed you and now they're doing their due diligence and they're checking you out. They're doing that background check and they're checking to see what type of person you have been and what type of person you are now. Okay? And so it's very important that your online presence reflects the person that you truly are and that you want to be perceived as a professional. Next is be open to change. Your next move may look completely different from what you expected. This is so important, and especially in a time like this. You know, sometimes we make some statements like, this is what I want. I have a vision. This is what I want. And we make it look a certain way. Or we'll say, well, if it has this or it has that, I don't want it. Now, you do have some things that we call deal breakers. Things that, you know, you don't want to negotiate on, right? Like you may say, well, I definitely don't want to work crazy shifts, you know, or I don't want to work in another country or whatever the deal breakers are. But you need to be open. Sometimes that move may be good for you. Sometimes that move has exactly what you need. And so for me, when I took that HR job, it was on Abaco. I didn't know nothing about Abaco. I don't have family there. I don't have roots there. That was completely brand new. But I'm so glad that I was open to that move because I learned and grew so much from that opportunity. And Abaco became like my second home. In fact, my family was like, you forget where you come from. You forget you're from Nassau. Because I didn't even used to come to Nassau anymore. It became my home. But if I wasn't open to that move, and it wasn't that it wasn't scary. I remember my first day there when I landed there and I got all my boxes and bags and they were piled up in the place that I was staying. And I looked at everything and I said, Lord, look at my life here in boxes and bags. What have I done? I'm sitting in this room here by myself. What on earth did you do, Simmone? But that feeling only lasted that day, thankfully. And it was an amazing experience. And then finally, build your bounce back muscle. Navigating transitions is not easy, but it is possible. Be ready for challenges and setbacks. And this is important. Remember, I talked about the emotional aspect of transitions. And so sometimes it may take longer than you expected it to. You know, and you're putting all these resumes out, you go into all these interviews. It's very disheartening. You know, it's discouraging. It starts to play on your head, you know, and some of it isn't your fault. You know, yeah, they may have had a candidate, but sometimes it may have been just that person edged you out a little bit, or it may be that person, it was a setup, it was a hookup. You know, we live in a community where it's who you know and not about what you do. And so it may just, that person that got the job may not be more talented than you. They just were, well, better connected than you, you know, and but it still plays on your mind and it plays on your psyche. And you have to find ways to build your resilience, stay positive, stay motivated, stay busy, so that when your transition comes, that you're absolutely ready for it. So here's some tips on having a killer resume. It needs to be clean, it needs to be clear, it needs to be correct. Very important that it's clear in terms of easy to understand, there's a good flow going on, clean in terms of you know, the look of it, how it presents itself, the formatting and all of that, and that it's correct. Correct in terms of the information that you provide, knowing that they will check references, they will check former employers, and they could even check in with the police to see, even if you were not convicted of anything, because that's the thing, you know, a police record that's clean. Hey, look at this cat trying to get in my window. Oh my gosh. A police record that's clean may not show any convictions, but when people can check into with the police, it may show things that you may have been implicated in, but never charged. Okay, and so please do understand that companies do that. Okay, so even if you were involved in a fight back in the 11th grade and the police were called in and you were called in for questioning or whatever, then, you know, that could be on your record in the police database, and could be held against you and not be on your police record. So use accurate contact information, including a professional email address. We all should know this by now, right? That we do not use hotbuns@gmail.com for our contact information for an employer, right? Um, Thug Life 242 at Hotmail. You know, we want to avoid those types of emails. Create an email that is that reflects, it's just your name, first and last name, first name dot last name. Keep it simple, but keep it professional. Okay, make sure that the phone that you give is accurate. A lot of times people miss out on opportunities because we can't reach you. The phone isn't working, or it's not the right number, or you don't have minutes. And a lot of companies are not going to take the time to call you from their cell phone or make several attempts to call you, because again, if they're trying to reach a lot of people, they may try 1 or 2 times and then they'll be like, well, forget you. You know, let me go on to somebody else who I can actually reach. So make sure you have accurate and functioning contact information. If you give somebody else's phone to be reached, you know, a lot of times you give mommy's number or Grammy's number. You need to let these people know that, hey, I've given out this for people who calling me for a job. I can't tell you the amount of people who, you know, they give you a bad impression because of how they answer the phone, how they respond. I remember this time that somebody gave their mother's number and I called and the woman was talking with me like she was the person. And by the time I finished, I was asking certain questions and whatnot. Then she finally admitted, well, I'm not Erica. I'm her mommy. I'm like, well, why are you pretending to be Erica? Just take a message and have Erica call me back. Like, why would you do that? You know, and it gives an impression that you all are now dishonest people. Okay. Create a compelling objective or career summary. So the objective is that section of the resume where people say, well, I would like, and this is usually people make the mistake of making it very generic. So you say, I would like a position in a dynamic company where I can grow and show my skills. But what does that say? That says absolutely nothing. Nothing. I should, Jamaro, why you up? Oh gosh. Um, I was not calling on behalf of. You must be no. I can't say that. I can't say that. But for true. um, but a compelling objective would give me a snapshot of what you're able to do and the skill set that you have and the type of job that you're looking for. So the objective should clearly state um, the position that you're looking. So seeking a position as a customer service representative. You could say in a dynamic, fast-growing company if you want to say that, if that's what you're really looking for, where I can demonstrate my XYZ skills. So that snapshot tells me as an HR professional, one thing, you know what you want. Secondly, this is what you are qualified to do. Thirdly, this is the skill set that you have in one sentence. Okay, so that's what the objective, compelling objective is. You could even come up with a brand name, you know, savvy social media marketer, you know, that would be eye catching. And then it would tell a lot. And then your objective would explain what that actually is. Or you may choose to do a career summary where you can say customer service professional with 6 years experience in, and you can put different types of companies demonstrating XYZ skills or having these particular characteristics. So you want to beef that area up because again, it's selling you. You can use it right at the top of the resume, or some formats you can put it on the side. There are lots of different fancy formats that you can use, but it's important that you have that piece in there that's compelling. List all relevant experiences in reverse chronological order. This is important. Reverse chronological order means you start with your most recent experiences and you work back. And you do that with your work experience and your educational experiences. Okay, now your experiences should show your progression and the relevance to the job that you're looking for. So for instance, if you have had like maybe a lot of summer jobs, or like some of us that may have been working for 10 years or more, you may have some experiences that may not be relevant and it's making your resume really, really long, like more than 2 pages. Because as the more you grow as a professional, you won't be able to stick to a 1-page resume, not in this day and time. So 2 pages, I think, is good, but you want to show relevance. And so in some cases, like people like me have been working like over 20 years, you may have a section in your resume that just talks about previous experiences and that they could check into later on if they're doing a background check. But I would highlight the experiences that are relevant to what I'm applying for now and most recent. Use a resume template that is professional and reflects the industry you are in. So that is important. And some resumes can get away with more than others. So if you are in a more creative field, there's an expectation that you need to see what you're able to do. You know, if you need to create a portfolio, you're a photographer or a graphic artist, people want to see examples of your work. People want to see that you are a creative, but you don't want to use something that's so, as in this next point, that's so busy that I can't read it or it's distracting. So you want to strike a balance there. And you want to avoid spelling errors, check as much as possible, let somebody else look it over. An extra set of eyes never hurts because we get attached to what we read and we tend to overlook errors. So it's important to let someone else look over it if possible. You don't necessarily need to put hobbies on a resume. That's a little childish. However, you would want to put things like community involvement, civic involvement, professional organizations, affiliations, right, that you want to put on. So if you are involved in Toastmasters, Rotary, Kiwanis, youth organizations, you know, things that you may volunteer. You volunteer for Hands for Hunger, or, you know, stuff like that, Brandfully Home, whatever it is. Put those things there rather than hobbies, because your affiliations will still reflect your interests to some degree, but it gives it a more professional flair. You don't need to put personal data such as your height and weight and birth date. I see a lot of that going on, whether your marital status, all of that, how many children you have. Don't put that on your resume, please. A, it's going to clutter it up. B, it could be held against you. C, it just isn't necessary, because that information can be found in other information. Your identification will tell me your birth date and other information I need to know. If I have an application process, I can get that information somewhere else. So you don't need to put that on the resume. And I put here possibly a photo. For some jobs, a photo is necessary, and it's a good touch. For some, it can lend itself to bias. And so I would opt against a photo more than for it, depending on, unless, you know, you try to do something, again, that is client facing, or a model or something like that, where the photo is necessary, but you don't necessarily have to put a photo. It could be held against you. On your resume, focus on responsibilities and results. So this kind of pulls it more into the zone of a CV. You may have heard of a CV, curriculum vitae, and this is where you would have more detailed information about the jobs you perform. Doing this on your resume is good because it allows people to see with a bit more depth the jobs that you would have performed. So for instance, if I just had from 2015 to 2020, 3 CSR jobs, and I just have 2015 to 2016 customer service representative, 2016 to 2018 customer service representative, 2018 to present customer service representative. Can you see the flaw in that? That it's not really telling me, because every job is different, especially if you're working in those areas where you may be asked to do more than just a CSR job. I wouldn't know that. All I'm thinking is, okay, so they probably was just answering the phone, taking orders or whatever based on the business. But if you put what you were responsible for, it beefs up that job and shows me now that you have perhaps some relevant skills, or that you were able to get certain results. So when we talk about results, we're talking about maybe where you may have created you initiated some sort of new process, or you were able to tweak something. You were able to deal with irate customers, or you were able to convert walk-in customers to loyal customers, and those numbers. You know, I would have facilitated over 500 training sessions, you know, that kind of thing. So you're looking at responsibilities and results. That tends to give more depth to the just putting the job title. Write a cover letter that sells your skills. Now, some people don't require cover letters. Like I personally, it depends on if I would read a cover letter or not, but some places do. And the cover letter, again, is that introduction to who you are and why you would be great for that role. You would initiate in the first part of it that you are maybe responding to an ad, or you would like to be considered for the particular position. You would go into a snapshot, maybe a paragraph, on how your past experiences will equip you for that position. And the last paragraph usually invites an interview or a further conversation to talk about how you can play a part or contribute to the organization. So that's the basic 3-part structure to a good cover letter. So question in the chat: would recruiters consider your past work experiences if you are not applying for a job within your most recent field? Sometimes it can work against you because they will say, well, gee, you don't have any experience in this job. And I think, again, this is where I was talking about HR professionals and hiring managers, that we need to be a bit more flexible and open when we are looking at resumes. It's very easy to judge. It's very easy to do that and say, well, if this person doesn't have, but we have to also look at the climate that we're working in, and that, you know, if people are trying to make a career change, they may not have the necessary experience in that area. So I know of quite a few people who want to get into the field of HR that have no HR experience, but they're trying to get in. Now they have qualified themselves, so they may have gotten a degree, a certification, or a higher degree in human resources. They may be a part of a human resource um, association. So those things to me are clues that this person is preparing themselves for this job. And that is worthy of consideration. Okay, so there are things that you can do to make your resume look a little better. That's why I take advantage of all these free courses and things that people are offering now, and make sure that it's in that field that you want to get into, so that you can show where you're preparing yourself. So I may not have the relevant experience, but I'm showing where I have an interest, I have a focus, I have commitment, and I may have at least theoretical training. Certifications and courses recommending for someone interested in career coaching. Career coaching, not offhand, but we could definitely offline about that, because there are some places that do it, because it is different from life coaching. So yeah, we could talk about that offline for sure. So some interview tips, and then we will be done after this. How can we ace the interview? Preparation is key. Now, I use this diagram because there's a very strong possibility and reality that this is how we may be doing a lot of interviews. And so when you are preparing for an online or virtual interview, you really have to bring it. You really have to let your energy show, because they may not see that killer outfit. Like this young lady here, they only probably could see her head and that scarf, you know? And so you really have to know your stuff, bring your personality to the table, and prepare yourself for that virtual environment. Question on the professional headshot. Yes, yes, style clothing, makeup style, the hair. Yes, you would want to follow the same principles as if you were preparing for an interview. Your headshot should reflect how you want to look as a professional, how you want to be perceived, and the image that you want to send, and how that reflects with your profession or industry. So for instance, say for as a guy, it isn't necessary that you may want to be in a suit, right? Like I'm working with someone now as a client to position himself as a speaker, but his personal style isn't really like that suit type person. You know, he has a more free style. He has locks, you know, his content is on, you know, very Afrocentric type things. And so his professional photo, his headshot, needs to reflect his messaging. And so you have to look at colors. Yes, your makeup should always look natural, and it should pop, but it should look natural. Your clothing can reflect, again, your style, whether it's more formal or whether it's more relaxed. The clothing should also reflect your brand colors. What colors resonate with you? What colors reflect you? So if you notice with my photos, any of my photos online, you're going to see one of three colors. You're going to see that aqua teal type color. You're going to see coral, and you're going to see white, because they are my primary colors for my brand. Okay.
So that's questions. Piercings, you need to be careful about that. Based on the organization itself, you would want to, you may have to remove some of those piercings because they may not work for the culture of the company. Um, some questions here that you may want to take a screenshot of this and practice, but if you practice, some questions always come up. And that one that you really, really need to practice is tell me about yourself. That's the question that people are most uncomfortable with and bomb the most. And so we need to prepare for that. Okay. Then some typical ones, tell me about your work experience. How do you define success? How do you work under pressure? What's your dream job? Why do you want to work for this company? And not because I hear y'all pay good or your benefits are good. You need to come up with better reasons than that. How do you handle conflict at work? Why are you interested in this position? What skills would you bring to the job? These are typical questions. The ones at the bottom relate to what I said before about responsibilities and results. And you also need to prepare for those behavioral type questions that, what would you do if? So scenario type questions. What would you do if you saw one of your coworkers stealing? What would you do if a customer shouts and curses at you, right? Because then now they're trying to see what would you do in the moment and how would you handle yourself, okay? And what would you do? And so here, I would ask these questions of you. What have you determined from this session that you would need to work on the most? This is important to ask because then this is where you would need to beef up and prepare yourself for your career move. And what can you celebrate about your career so far? This helps to build your confidence. You know, you have achieved some things. And so it's great to honor that and prepare that, you know. What action step can you take starting now to advance your next career move? So it may be where you may need to start telling some people in your network, hey, I'm looking, you know, or it may be I need to get that LinkedIn profile set up, or it may be where, you know, I need to really work on and tweak and revise my resume. Whatever that is, let's determine what that is so that you can make that career move happen. Is there still a certain amount of time you need to be on a job to seem stable in today's world? And that's an excellent question. And it really depends on the company, the hiring manager, the profession, the HR professional. Personally, I think at least a year to 2 years is good. But I do recognize that a lot of people are not going to be on a job for more than 2 to 3 years, maybe 5, depending on their age. But I would recommend not to try to stay on a job for at least a year to 2 years. Okay, that answers that question. So here I wanted to give some free resources. Yes, Jamaro is agreeing, and he's in HR as well, 1 to 2 years. So I wanted to give you some free resources, some websites that you can go to. There's some free career coaching that's being offered this month and June by Druber Solutions. And they also are offering free financial coaching as well. So if you want to take advantage of working with a career coach, and I am the career coach for Druber, and there are a number of really awesome personal finance coaches. Take advantage of it. Go on the website, sign up, get a free 30-minute session, and really help, you know, you can answer those specific questions that you may have about your career. And also, I'm hosting a free virtual leadership conference, and you can go onto my website, sbsgloballeaders.com, and register for that. I recognize that this has been like a 2.5-hour masterclass. And I have to go on to another call and do the same thing. So I won't be able to take any additional questions here, but feel free to email me at Simmone@sbsgloballeaders.com or hit me up on any of the social media platforms. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. More than happy to answer questions and to even chat with you if you have any other questions or concerns or just advice if you want to just to look over the resume. I can tell you what I think, whichever you would like. I'm available to help you out with that. And so, Stefan, I will turn it over to you.
All right, great session, Simmone. It has been a very lengthy one, but I'm sure we all have tons of notes and things we can take from all of the great information that you've shared so far. Tell us where we can find you right quick, Simmone, and then we will end our session for today.
Yes. So you can find me. All of my handles are as Simmone L. Bowe. And so that's on Facebook. It's Simmone L. Bowe, the Limitless Life Coach, is my public page. Or I'm on Messenger there. On Instagram, it's Simmone L. Bowe, Limitless Life. I'm on Instagram. Yes, that's Instagram. LinkedIn is the same thing, Simmone L. Bowe. And you can also go on my website there, sbsgloballeaders.com. And you can reach me by email or WhatsApp there. There's a WhatsApp link on the website. So you can reach me at any of those places.
All right, great. We have a lot of thank yous from Facebook.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate that.
Quite a few persons, Tamara, Deshaun, all of them are saying thank you. So thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you guys tomorrow for some other sessions, particularly on, we have a session on media and tech with Christoph, Roll, and some other sessions that we will be informing you about via email and all of the other platforms. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you so much.